Are you suffering from Capone Syphilis Syndrome? Do you even know what Capone Syphilis Syndrome is? Well, it's real, all right? And it's dangerous. It's when you know something is wrong in your business, but you refuse to look at it. Just like Al Capone and his syphilis. You ignore the warning signs. You justify the risk. You tell yourself, no, this time is different. Everything's fine. Nothing to see here. And just like Al Capone, the thing that you're pretending isn't there slowly eats you alive. Like syphilis did to Al Capone's brain. In today's episode, we are talking about the most dangerous habit that entrepreneurs have: willful ignorance. Why we keep repeating the same mistakes, why excitement overrides our judgment, and how one simple counterbalance can stop you from burning your business down in the name of, your next great idea. So if you've ever doubled down instead of slowing down, this episode is for you. Welcome back to The Entrepreneur Addict, the podcast that helps you learn how to lead without losing yourself to your business. My name is Matthew Tompkins. I am an entrepreneur / addict.
And my name is Lance Pendleton, and I am also an entrepreneur and / addict.
Yeah.
I say that every time.
Yeah, I know, and / Slash is also joining us too from another addict. He'll be here on the show. Yeah, little GNR doing some noodling on the guitar. So Al Capone, he killed himself basically out of his own kind of just willful ignorance. Mm-hmm. Sometimes willful ignorance is bliss. Ignorance is bliss. I don't know about willful ignorance. That maybe that's debatable, but I am often envious of stupid people. Like sometimes I'll go to Walmart and I'll just be like, man, that would be nice. That would be nice just to be completely oblivious to just anything. Just be walking around in 2 mismatched socks, in my Crocs with, jean shorts that are literally used to be jeans that I just cut before I went to Walmart. Yes, jorts. My pockets are hanging out. Yeah. Haven't washed them in a couple years, so they're well worn out and worn in.
With a mesh tank top.
Yeah, with a mesh tank top. Yeah. I've got, my hoop rings in. My stud in my tongue, and then one eye is a different color than the other, and it's not intentional. I mean, sometimes I'm envious of it's like some people just they have this I don't give a clause, like they just don't care, and I'm not making fun at all. I mean, I kind of am, but I'm genuinely when I say I'm envious. Like some people that can go to the gym and wear the spandex pants. And they should be. I mean, let's be honest. Not all of us really. You can see everything.
Well, let's be clear. Spandex is a privilege, not a right.
Okay. Well, I could not pull it off, and it's not that I'm saying hey, they shouldn't or they don't look good. It's just I'm envious of the level of confidence, self-confidence that you have in yourself to pull that off, because I can't do it. I wore a Speedo 1 year for 2 hours, and that was all I could do. So on one hand, I'm a little envious, but I think in the sake of this conversation, this is kind of a thing that tanks a lot of business owners, is that we're in this unhealthy sense of denial, this unhealthy willful ignorance that really erodes our brain, like Al Capone.
Well, I think entrepreneurs have a very, very different sense of risk tolerance than the average person.
What is risk tolerance?
Risk tolerance is really the development part in which your brain is wired in a way to feed off of the fear in risk, to view it as a positive rather than to view it as potential negative. So I think a lot of entrepreneurs, this is the fascinating part to me, will view something that is identified as risky as the nature of business. Well, that's what you need to get involved in if you want to win. And it's like, yeah, but did you really think about the outcome of that? Which in a lot of the conversations I have with my clients are, well, yes, but. There's always this yes, but. There's this justification around why they need to be doing it. And it's there's no talking them out of it at that point in time. But yet you say, okay, well, let's think forward in this. Play the tape forward. What would happen if X? And they're like, well, that's not going to happen. And I'm like, but that can happen. But that's not going to happen though. And you're like, but that's not a real thing. So if you think about, this analogy of the Al Capone syndrome and how business owners think about things, it really is living in this world of denial around the belief. And let's be super clear. Al Capone died of syphilis because of pride. That's why he died of syphilis. Yeah. He just didn't want to admit that the almighty Al Capone could get an STD. That's not a real thing, right? So that level of pride and ego, there's no doubt addicts, pride and ego is the biggest 2 factors that we have going for us. Combined then with, from a business standpoint, how do you tamp that back? Well, it's all risk aversion or risk analysis, and that doesn't really always live at the forefront of one's mind for a lot of the folks that I work with.
Well, especially when like you've mentioned, like we have the timeline of now or not now.
Right.
And it's like, okay, I've got this idea now, let's do it. Let's do it. Or it's not now, I'm not going to think about it. You know? And so I think that's a big component in this, because we're like planning this, doing, and it's like, I don't know. I feel like there are so many different types that operate in like a business, like in a company, you know? And so you're going to have people who are like more risk averse, who are going to want to plan and want to be meticulous, that are like too cautious. They're overly cautious. And then you're going to have the entrepreneurs who want to like, you know, move fast, break things. And I think you have to have a nice balance of both, but it's really hard to find that balance. And I think the key is there. What makes it challenging is, you know, usually it's the entrepreneur who wants to move fast and break things. They're usually the decision maker at the top.
Sure.
And so they have to be willing to say, you know, you're right, this belongs in the parking lot, or, you know.
And let's be super clear. The decision makers at the top that are the move fast, break things, the reason that they're doing that is because they're not the ones dealing with the consequences. They're not. It's everybody below them that's suffering. I know, I lived it, working in a culture that was in that move fast, break things, where everybody was doing it for the benefit of this great entrepreneurial idea. And the truth of the matter is, everybody below that entrepreneur was fucking miserable. Why? Because we were all working insane hours. Everything was in that now. There was no like not now concept. Everything was whatever fart entered that man's mind. It was like everyone's pivoting to go do this. And we're like, but what about this? That we need to go do this now. And it was constantly shifting and changing. And so, you know, you talk about risk, it's like, well, but you're not aware of the impact that you can see. So here's a good question for you as a business owner yourself. How many times have you recognized in yourself that you have an amazing idea, but the thought of how to pay for that is like this like wild afterthought, because just the excitement and creativity around the development of the idea far supersedes the boring elements of how do we pay for that? Yeah, I mean, it's not even usually how to pay for it, because it's like, most of the ideas that, like in our world here with, you know, having a marketing company, they really just center around time. So it's like, how much time are we going to dedicate to this, you know? Right. So it's not like, hey, we got to hire X number of people, or we got to pay somebody to do this website or do this thing. So it's a little different in that sense, because like we're in this like service model. So it's like, it's just our time. So I could justify it a lot quicker and be like, well, I'm paying you for your time either way. Right. I want you working on this, you know? So, but I think the easier disconnect is like fleshing out the idea to where it's actually a profitable idea. Right. That's going to actually make sense. So it's like, okay, it's a good creative idea, but then is it a profitable idea? And then is it an idea that's going to actually work? And then how's it going to actually get done? Like, those are the steps that I usually don't want anything to do with. But isn't time money? In essence, time is money. But like, you're not going to view it that way. Like, I don't view it. You know what I mean? Like, right. Yeah. But isn't that the blocker though? I mean, your time. So again, it's not understanding how much is this going to cost me of something else that I could be doing that may not be as exciting or interesting, but that time is better spent because it has a better economic income or a better economic outcome in the moment. Yeah. I mean, like, you know, I think looking at, it's kind of like with, you know, entrepreneurs who look at like, you know, social media management is a good example of like how much time it actually takes them to manage the social media. But I think as an owner, you're looking at it differently. So like in that scenario, it's like, okay, you're a business owner, you're charging clients X dollars per hour, and you're going to dedicate 10 hours per week to social media. That means it's costing you this much money. Right. But then like, I think the entrepreneur justifies it. It's like, well, if I'm not spending on this, I'm not going to it's not like I'm going to spend that on something else, that time on something else. Or it's like, I'm paying these employees to do something. And so they're going to be doing the same, getting paid the same no matter what. It's just shifting them around. So I think there's like a lot of ways you can manipulate that in your mind and justify it. You can. And so just to take a big step back on one thing you said before, which I think is important, is the devil is in the details. And my experience with people is that they don't like the details. The creativity element of it from an entrepreneur standpoint is far more exciting than the detail-oriented process. And it's only so fun as you can take it till it requires then multitasking. And then it's not really fun anymore, because at the end of the day, that feeling of overwhelmed that most entrepreneurs live with all the time, it's the biggest blocker that I notice to them doing sort of these risk-centric things or actions because they go into risk-centric actions, a big word, I can't say that, or words, risk-centric actions with this idea that we're just going to figure that part out down the road. Well, it's like, no, you need to figure that part out now, as you said, as part of it. But that's the part that's not sexy. That's the part that's not fun or exciting. That's the kind of like grunt crap that people don't want to talk about or deal with.
Yeah, well, and I've done that too with like hiring people. Like in my mind, I've had this weird, it's like, hire them now, we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
How we're gonna like pay for the, you know what I mean? Like it's like, let's build the team that this magical team that we need, and then you build the team, and you're like, well, wait, like this isn't the team we need. This is like a future need, and we're paying a lot of money for this. And then like, how are we justifying it? Or like you have clients drop, just the natural churn of clients. You're like, all right, well, we still, there's there's a contracted period, so we'll pick it up, and like in your mind, you're just like, not Al Capone. Not going to think about it.
So
not going to think about it.
Let's focus then on one thing that's near and dear to my heart, because what you just touched on there is experiential memory. And that is something that I am completely convinced so many entrepreneurs struggle with. Many entrepreneurs have zero experiential memories. And what is an experiential memory? It is the ability for us to have a previous experience, positive or negative, identify that in the current moment as a measuring stick to then understand, how do I apply that to what's happening right now? What happened last time I did that? What was that outcome like? And how did I feel around that?
Yeah.
I'm convinced that for many entrepreneurs, that does not exist at all.
No.
And I watch folks who go into this process, Matt, where they go and they start in on something. And the minute you remind them of like, how'd that work out for you last time? You can see it's like crushing their spirit and their soul on the inside, because it starts the shame cycle that we talk about. It's like they have to then come a double down to keep that dopamine level high of like, but that was different because of X. And it's like, it's not really different. You did that. It didn't work very well. How do we do this differently now? And they don't want to address that because they don't remember that previous thing that created that negative outcome.
There are some big ideas, some good ideas. And like, I often feel like cursed with these ideas because it's like, well, we haven't even ran with the last 10 brilliant ideas you came up with.
Yeah.
Like, so what do you do with all these ideas? Because like, the risk assessment is not there. So I don't see the risk. So then you're like, hey, is this a great idea? Yeah. Is this profitable? Yeah. But like, I mean, I think you do the same thing too, where it's like, okay, this seems like a great idea. I'm going to run with it. And it's like, there's nobody like stopping you.
Yeah.
But then you're also on the flip side. I'm like, well, these are all great ideas. So then how do I delineate and actually know like, okay, this is the brilliant idea I should run with, and this one isn't?
I will tell you right now, there's a very, very clear answer to that. You ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
You get a partner in your business that is identified as Practical Patty. And Practical Patty's job, and by the way, that was a phrase coined by my therapist who calls me Practical Patty in my world. Practical Patty's job is that when you have all these great ideas, to help you stay practical on centralizing those things to identify which one has the highest priority on what is really going to generate income, what are the most important things, and how does this fit within our mission and goal? Is it up there based on this other idea that you currently had that we're in the process of? Like, where does it fit within the timeline? So get a Practical Patty in your life, because I think every good entrepreneur should absolutely have somebody that is a counterbalance, because that counterbalance has every opportunity to help them accelerate and be better at what they do.
Finding that the right counterbalance though is hard. That is challenging, because you have to find, I mean, that's like an A+ player. Like that's not that's not an entry level position, because you have to think like, I mean, it's got to be somebody based in the US. I mean, because just culturally around the globe, most cultures outside the US, they don't want to challenge authority. Correct. So you need somebody who's going to challenge you. So you need someone who's based here. You need someone who's got experience, who understands what you do, because they need to be able to see where the actual opportunity is in this idea. Because if it's just over their head, I mean, we had a Practical Patty here, was one of the best Practical Patties you could possibly have, but didn't understand anything that I was explaining. So that does us no good, because everything's going to seem impractical, and they're not going to understand any of the ideas. Yeah,
that's a great point. And I'll throw in though, but it's not really bringing in this C-suite executive level person. The truth of the matter is, your Practical Patty could be a spouse. Your Practical Patty could be a friend. They don't have to be someone you're employing in the business. It's just somebody that when you have the next great idea, that you can gut check with them. Because, I think people don't want to look at their boss and go, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Or like the old Billy Madison line, like, we are all dumber now from having just heard that. May God have mercy on your soul. But like the person in your life, you need to have someone that creates that sounding board because we don't want to tamp down the entrepreneur's excitement. We don't want to stop that level of enthusiasm around something. We just want to help them recognize, where does this fit with where we're going?
Yeah, and I guess my point is, though, it's harder than you'd think to find that honest sounding board that is the right balance of all those things.
It is tough. It is tough, but I would challenge you on that, though, Matt, because I actually think that it's not as hard. It's hard predominantly because you are trying to find the perfect person for that, when in reality, many of those people already exist in your life.
I don't know. I mean, I go through the checklist of like your obvious ones. You can like spouse, like I don't know. The nuances of what I do in particular are seemingly so simple and easy, and everybody can do marketing. Everybody thinks they can do it, but then it gets complicated. So then you get into like breaking this down, especially with the introduction of AI into everything. I see people's eyes gloss over when I talk about things and why it's an opportunity versus not.
Yeah.
And so it's a limited function, because I mean, just in people who are embracing AI on the level that I am, to even understand what it is I'm explaining to them, is a limited audience, you know? And so then I have to, then of that limited audience, then I'm like, okay, then it's like, who's going to be honest and give feedback and not also be another entrepreneur who just gets excited by the idea. And then it's like, next thing you know, you're running with it, you know? So I think it's like, that's why you have to have a good balance of like your own self sounding board. Like you have to be able to like be honest with yourself and I think learn some sort of practice, if you will, of like, okay, I have an idea and it may be a brilliant idea, but we have a process for how we go through this idea that goes through several different people or whatever it might be. So you're not just running with the idea immediately.
I don't need to know anything about marketing. I don't need to know anything about widget making. I don't need to know anything about those different things for the folks that I work with, right? What I need to understand, though, is how they operate. And that's what I think is a little bit different, is that I think at the practical level, most entrepreneurs are looking for someone who understands them, right? Not understands the business that they're in, but understands them. And that's why I think the people that are around us are the best beginning starting point, because I don't need to know, I don't really know marketing. Truthfully, I don't. I mean, it's why you and I have a relationship, because I'm like fucking terrible at it, but I know enough to empower somebody else who has your level of creativity, experience, and I think business savvy around something that's just not in my wheelhouse. But I also trust that I will run that by 3 other people, because a lot of times, the default for us is just to be like, okay, well, someone else deal with this. Well, is that in your best interest or not, right?
Yeah.
Your job, I think, as the entrepreneur, is to be the person to identify the opportunities. But it's someone else's job to help you then go, okay, cool. Where is that going to fit into what you're currently doing right now?
Yeah. And I think it's like, that's my big takeaway here, is like, to your business, this particular process, it is have a process. Have step by step. Like for me, it like I come up with an idea, I immediately want to start pitching it. Now, old me was like, we're going to run with this. We're going to do this, and it's already a done deal.
Yeah.
The current me is like, as much as I don't look like it, I am improving and evolving slowly but surely. But like the current me, it's like I have a process where, okay, got a great idea.
Right.
I'm going to flesh it out on my own, and then I'm going to go and I'm like, okay, now I'm going to pitch it. I'm going to run this by like, there's like 3 or 4 different like people I'll just pitch this to, and I'll see if the pitch holds up, if it makes sense to other people, if it holds up. And then if I feel like, okay, nobody's poked any holes in this, then I think, okay, then we can like, take it to phase 2.
And my pushback on that is there's nothing wrong with that. But as someone that coaches people, works with them in development of that process, my question is, cool, who's executing that for you? Because the problem with the entrepreneur today is they have the creative idea and they want to be the one to execute on that. But I think that's the missing X factor.
I don't want to. That's where I'm different. Like I don't want to execute it.
Right. But a lot of entrepreneurs have a control problem where they would need to be the person involved in the execution of that. And that's not reality.
Yeah. Like it will drive me crazy. Like when it's like, if it's not executed to the standards of which it needs to be.
Right.
But at the same time, like I'm fine with handing it off.
But like, that's what I mean by the practical patty function. There has to be the person that actually comes back to you and goes, okay, that's a great idea. How are we handing this off to somebody else? Who are we handing it off to? And then how do you, again, not get involved in that until you pet the bunny and kill it? Because that's the other problem that comes in. You talk about risk. For me, It's always about the idea of risk can be great. Risk is important to business success, as long as you're not involved in it. Because my experience has been that most entrepreneurs will take risk, involve themselves in it to the point in which they can't see anymore whether it's functional or not. And that's a dangerous space and place to be in.
It's risky business.
Well, it's having syphilis and denying that it's happening.
Risky business.
I'm just going to pretend
movie.
to keep that. Is that what that is?
Tom Cruise?
Yeah.
He's in his underwear?
Yeah. Oh.
Okay.
Outro.
Your business. If this episode made you realize how often excitement replaces judgment in your business, don't ignore that signal. Don't be like Al Capone. That's the lesson here, especially if you have syphilis. Inside the Entrepreneur Addict, we give you simple processes to pressure test ideas, slow down bad decisions, and stop repeating the same costly mistakes. So visit us. The link is in the show notes. Sign up for the marketing course now. I promise you, the only burning sensation that you're going to experience is the burning, yearning sensation you feel inside with your revitalized marketing experience. How's that? That work? Yeah. Did I bring that back around? I did.